Hey guys, Fan here again, and today I'm going to make a video that's going to be telling you guys about what stats that you should look for on all of your equipment that are going to be the best stats for your character. A lot of the stats in this game are very confusing, so I'm going to make a very simple guide on exactly what stats you should be looking for because they're just the best stats in Diablo 4. If you feel like your character's not super powerful right now, chances are it's because your items don't have good stats on them. Now, I'm not going to go over the numbers here, but this basically revolves around the damage buckets theories. As you can see here, there's different damage buckets, and depending on which bucket it falls into, the stat can either be really good or really bad, and it's not very clear when you just look at it in game. Now, if you want to learn more about that, there's a bunch of videos. Just search Diablo 4 damage buckets. You can find one of those. I'm going to try to keep this video simple though, and I'm not going to worry too much about the buckets or anything. I'm just going to explain to you what you should be looking for on your gear. So let's start with the offensive weapons. So this is going to be your two-handers, your one-handers, all your weapons. Now, what you want to look for on weapons is number one, you want vulnerable damage. If you have a build in Diablo 4 that does not apply vulnerable whatsoever, well, then you need to look for a way to make it apply vulnerable because vulnerable is extremely, extremely important. It's a completely separate multiplier. So vulnerable damage is one of the most important stats on your weapon. You can see here I have 120% between the two rolls on my crossbow, so that is probably rank number one in terms of the most important stat you want on your offensive weapons. Look for vulnerable damage no matter what, and if you can't apply vulnerable with your build, either find a way to do it or accept your build is not going to be as strong as most other builds in Diablo, at least for the moment. The second stat you really want on your weapons is critical strike damage. Once again, this is the same reason as vulnerable damage. These are separate multipliers, which mean any stat that you get in either of those categories are going to be very powerful for you. So vulnerable, critical strike damage, these should be the top two stats that you're looking for on every single weapon, no matter what. If your weapon does not have these two stats or one of these two stats and you find a weapon with both, it's gonna be an upgrade even if the item power is a little bit lower or something like that. The third best stat that you should be looking for is your main stat. In the case of a rogue here, it's gonna be dexterity. Your main stat is also a separate multiplier. It makes your skills do more damage, so it affects all your skills. It's very powerful. So that's number three that you want to look out for. Okay, your number three should be whatever the main stat of your class is because it's going to increase the skill damage of your entire class. And number four is a bit more flexible. So here you can see I have ultimate skill damage. That's not the best number four. Number four is usually just whatever the highest number is. So this could be something like close damage, or it could be like core damage. If you're a melee rogue like me, if you're someone that plays from distant, maybe it's distant damage. If you're someone that is a mage, maybe it's non-physical damage, right? So basically that four stat, you are looking for whatever the highest number is out of all of the rest of the stats, because all the rest of the stats are in the same category. So literally you just look for the highest number for this last one. And you can see it's going to be the same with my dagger here. I have vulnerable, I have critical strike damage, I have dexterity. Those are the top three that you're looking for. And then I have 23.3 core skill damage, which is not bad, but it's not amazing either. It could be better. So if I found a dagger with the identical three stats and the fourth stat was something like, plus 30% close damage, then that would be a better dagger than this one because the 30 is better than the 23.3. For that fourth one, you're just really looking for a bigger number. My second dagger is a unique. These stats are all fixed, and I'm using this because it has a lot of attack speed. Attack speed is very, very good for most builds. However, there are certain builds that don't use attack speed, such as Whirlwind Barbarian or Incinerate Sork. So you gotta first make sure that attack speed affects your build. In the case of the Rogue, it does, so it's a very valuable modifier there. That's why we're using this unique dagger that gives attack speed. So that is what you should be looking for on your weapons. Now let's move on to your rings and your accessories and your gloves, because these are all potentially offensive slots as well, and they're really similar in that case. Okay, so for rings, it's going to be mostly the same thing: vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, critical strike damage. Critical strike chance is the big thing for rings. Your weapons cannot roll critical strike chance, but your rings can. So now you're looking for, for the rings, critical strike chance becomes one of the top attributes that you're looking for. So the top ones for rings would be vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, critical strike damage, and I don't believe I've seen main stat rolls on rings, so usually for the last roll, it's going to be, once again, default to something that's helpful for your build. Physical damage, for example, is helpful for a Twisting Blades rogue that I'm playing, so I have physical damage on this one. However, once again, that last slot, just highest number, right? If I see a ring that has, plus 20% core skill damage and the other three stats are the same, I would take that one over this one. Last stat, you're just going for the highest number there. Similarly, this one, you can see I have critical strike chance, critical strike damage. I was unable to find vulnerable here. If I found a ring with vulnerable with those two, I would actually replace this ring. But other than that, you're once again looking for highest number. And not all numbers are made equally. You can see here the highest roll on damage to close enemies is 35.3% on this ring, whereas the highest roll on physical damage is only 21% on this ring. Now that makes sense because physical damage is it's going to apply to more things than close damage. However, in the case of a melee Twisting Blades rogue, for me, there's essentially no difference. So that means I would rather look for the close damage pretty much every time over the physical damage, because I'm always going to be close to whatever I'm hitting. And in that case, I want, the number that can roll much higher. So moving on to the amulet. Amulet can give you plus ranks to your abilities. So what you're looking for the amulet ideally is a double +3. That is the maximum for the amulet. Double +3 on abilities that directly benefit you. So for me, in this case, weapon mastery and imbuements, these are very important skills for my damage, so very good for me. Depending on what build you play, you should be able to realize which skill benefits you greatly, so you want double +3 on there. Amulet can roll a lot of other important stuff too. Amulet can roll move speed. I would highly recommend move speed for most characters. It helps you run dungeons faster. If you're going to play against Uber Lilith, it helps you dodge her stuff easier. Just really valuable in general. So I would recommend move speed on Amulet as well. Also, some other stats that are really valuable that can appear on your accessory is max life, especially if you're playing a squishier class. Max life is very valuable, as well as armor percentage. I would say armor percentage, a high roll on armor percentage or a high roll on damage reduction. Those are probably two of the most valuable defensive rolls if you're going to go more defensive on your accessories. And then if you want to go offensive, we already covered that. That's crit strike chance, crit strike damage, vulnerable damage, and mobility, which is movement speed. So keep an eye out for all of those stats. Moving on to the gloves, the last piece of offensive gear that you have. Gloves can roll attack speed. I believe they are the only piece of gear that can roll attack speed. So if you are a character that needs attack speed, that is one of the best attributes. You're also looking for +4 to whatever your main, skill is, whatever your main core skill is. So in this case, I have +4 Twisting Blades. That is a very high priority on gloves as well. Critical strike chance, critical strike damage would be the other two that I would recommend. So you can see I'm missing critical strike damage on this glove. Otherwise, it would be pretty much a perfect roll. Now, if your class does not need attack speed, obviously you'd want something else for that roll, and you can if you're playing some build that doesn't need attack speed, then you can modify accordingly. Now, moving on to the boots. This is actually very similar to boots. Boots and amulets are the only two slots where you can get move speed. So move speed is priority number 1. Max roll or very high roll on move speed should always be focused on boots because there's very few chances for you to get it elsewhere. You can also look for plus ranks to your mobility option if that is a mobility option that you're going to use and you think it helps. Now, I really like plus move speed after you kill an elite, in addition to plus flat move speed, because once again, it just helps your dungeon clears a lot. You can run dungeons way faster, which means you can level way faster, you can find items way faster. So highly recommend double move speed boots, not only normal move speed, but also move speed after you kill an elite. And if you want to do some more combat stats, I think main stat, which in my case is dexterity, and also dodge chance, those are some of the best combat stats that you can get on boots. You can also get damage reduction while injured. Now, if you think you need more damage reduction, that is also a potential good way to go. I don't have that on my boots because I'm mainly fighting Uber Lilith, and she's going to one-shot you if you're injured, which is under 30% HP, so I don't look for that personally, but you could look for that as a potentially good stat as well. Now, moving on to the last set of your items. This is going to be your helmet, your chest piece, and your pants. So these are all defensive gear slots, and for defensive gear slots, they're pretty much going to be about the same in terms of what you're really looking for. So the best roles on defense are armor percentage and damage reduction, and they effectively do the same thing. So you can see on the helmet here we have a plus 10.1% total armor. Armor is damage reduction, so you're looking for every form of damage reduction. Now, a critical thing to note here is right now resistance is terrible in Diablo 4, so you do not want plus resistance on any piece of gear, no matter what. Sometimes you can't help it. Your amulet will always have plus resistance to all elements. That's just how amulets work. However, you do not want one of your rolls on your defensive pieces to be resistance. Okay, so most important stats on the defensive pieces is going to be, like I mentioned before, damage reduction or armor percentage. And if you're a squishier class, you can also go for max life like I am on the rogue here. So this is pretty much one of the best possible chests that you can get. You can see we have flat damage reduction, we have damage reduction from enemy that are poisoned, and I'm running a poison build, so this is always going to work. And we have damage reduction from close. Now the rolls could be higher, but those are pretty much the stats you're looking for. If you're another class with higher HP, you can roll the max life into armor percentage, and that would be how you get really, really tanky in the game. So that's about it. That's basically what you should be looking for. Obviously, on the head, you can get +4 to one of your main skills as well. So if you know what main skills you want to use, you can always look for that on the headpiece as well. And on the pants, you can sometimes get that as well. I'm using unique pants right now, so I don't have that, but you can look for the plus skills on the pants as well. But that's basically all the best stats in the game right now. If your character's feeling weak, chances are it's because you're not following this formula. So try it out, look for items with all of those stats that I just told you, because those are currently the best stats in Diablo 4 for almost any class. Hope this was of help. I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to like the video and subscribe for more content like this.